All right, let's do this. The United States has proposed a new ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas as negotiations between the two parties picked up this week. The Associated Press says Hamas doesn't seem enthusiastic about the proposal, while Iran assured Israel that a ceasefire in Gaza would make it less likely for Iranian-backed Hezbollah in southern Lebanon to launch a full-scale attack. Russia suffered major setbacks in Ukraine this week. They've been dominating the war for much of the year, but Ukraine now reports it has drilled 6 miles deep into Russian territory, having now gained control of Sudzha, a town of nearly 5,000 Russian people. Sudzha serves as one of Russia's key hubs for distribution of natural gas arriving from Siberia. Speaking of natural gas, Donald Trump late Friday signaled support for Vice President Harris's proposal to expand the child tax credit, something J.D. Vance and Speaker Mike Johnson have already said they would support. More on the vice president unveiling her new economic plan later on today's show. During a press conference held at his Bedminster, New Jersey golf course on Thursday, Donald Trump claimed Vice President Harris broke the world, said she isn't smart, and wants to turn America into a communist nation. Trump again insisted the 2020 presidential election was rigged, said he survived an assassination attempt because God wants him to save the world, and announced his old campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, is returning as Trump's personal envoy. Lewandowski was forced to resign back in 2016 after being accused of physically assaulting a female reporter for Breitbart. During the past several years, Lewandowski has faced several accusations of sexual harassment and assault, including one accusation from the wife of a wealthy Republican donor. It sounds like Lewandowski's going to fit right in with the Trump campaign. A brand new ABC News Washington Post poll shows Governor Tim Walz now holds a 7-point favorability lead over the wildly unpopular J.D. Vance. Although Vance Thursday was named to Trump's transition team, rumors still persist that Trump will try to recapture the news cycle during next week's Democratic convention by replacing the Ohio senator. But with whom? It's now official. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris will debate in Philadelphia on the evening of September 10th. The debate airs on ABC, and it will be hosted by anchor David Muir. With that debate a little less than a month away, former Democratic Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, who ran for the Democratic presidential nomination back in 2020, has been tapped to assist Donald Trump for his debate prep. Maggie Haberman, writing over at the New York Times, says the Trump campaign will lean on Gabbard for help in digging up ways to attack Harris on her work as a San Francisco prosecutor. A new A-plus Emerson poll shows the race tightening in Pennsylvania, with Donald Trump now leading Harris by 1 point. Pennsylvania has 19 electoral votes. Now, when you look at the blue wall, it's Pennsylvania with 19 electoral votes. Michigan has 15. Wisconsin has 10. Keep in mind, North Carolina and Georgia are in play. They both have 16. So if Harris loses Pennsylvania's 19 electoral votes, winning North Carolina or Georgia won't make up the difference. She has to win both. Short of that, she needs to win either North Carolina or Georgia, plus either Arizona or Nevada. That's why this election comes down to Pennsylvania right now. We have some good news for Harris. That same Emerson poll, this is an A-plus poll, it is showing Harris beating Trump nationwide by 4 points. That same poll also shows Democrats winning back control of the House. So she needs to do it with Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is the bellwether. If you want to know how this election will unfold by Election Day, pay attention to Pennsylvania. The Congressional Medal of Honor is awarded to members of the armed services who have distinguished themselves on the battlefield. But on Thursday, Donald Trump insisted that the Presidential Medal of Freedom is a much more important honor, while he was reminding his audience of how he awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom to the odious Miriam Adelson, wife of billionaire Republican donor Sheldon Adelson. In recalling how proud Sheldon was watching Trump pin the medal on Miriam in the White House, Donald Trump actually said, quote, "It's actually much better because everyone gets the Congressional Medal of Honor. They're soldiers." He actually said this. They're soldiers. They're either in very bad shape because they've been hit so many times by bullets, or they are dead. But she got it. She got the presidential medal because, she's healthy, beautiful, and, they're rated equal. But she got the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is much better. Hard to believe he called the troops in Arlington Cemetery losers and suckers. Unbelievable that there's even a chance that he's going to be allowed back inside the Oval Office. 160,000 video game actors who are members of the Screen Actors Guild went on strike after negotiations for a new contract collapsed over the use of artificial intelligence. Video games earn more money each year than the film, TV, and music industries combined. Let me repeat that. Video games earn more money worldwide than movies, television, and the music industry combined. So in terms of jobs and survival for working actors, this strike going on right now against the video game manufacturers, it may be more significant than the actors' strike we saw last year. I think people my age don't appreciate that movies and television are not necessarily dying industries, but nothing lasts forever. And from what I'm reading and from what I'm being told, if you want to know who controls Hollywood 10 years from now, Microsoft, especially after its $76 billion acquisition of video gamer Activision later last year. Now, the Biden administration's FTC tried to block that merger, but they lost in the courts. So far, they've lost in the courts. I'll have more about that coming up. Good morning. This is the Mop-Up for August 17th, 2024. I'm David Feldman in New York City. Thank you for finding me. If you would like a free transcript of today's episode, go to shopdavidfeldman.com. Those Trump transcripts are free thanks to listeners who have purchased garbage over at shopdavidfeldman.com, like, the Democrat, still a Democrat coffee mug. It's a busted heart, but it's still a Democrat. My favorite, the coffee mug that says made in Los Estados Unidos. And I'm expanding our market share by catering to banal mid-level management types who spend all day making everyone sign birthday cards at work and reminding the staff there's free tacos in the break room every third Thursday of the month. So don't go home early. This is a coffee mug for those people. It's a picture of Albert Einstein's face, and it says, I'm just laughing at it because it's so middle of the road. It's a picture of Albert Einstein's face, and it says, "I'm surrounded by idiots." This is the perfect gift for, your aunt or uncle who think golf isn't a colossal waste of time. Okay, I have a new product that I made for my sister who's still worried about Harris. She still thinks Harris can't win. So this is my map, the map I built, the worst case scenario map where I catastrophize. It's the blue wall. okay? Harris just needs to win Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. You know the drill. That gets her to 270, okay? She can lose Georgia. She can lose North Carolina. She can lose Nevada. She can lose Arizona. She just needs to win Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. She gets, what, 270? Trump gets 268. Most of Maine is red, but there's a sliver of blue in Maine that's blue. It's not winner take all. And Nebraska is not winner take all. There's a speck of blue in Nebraska. Harris gets 270. Trump gets 268. I am sick of my sister's 4 a.m. panic attacks where I have to sit on the phone going over this map with her. Look, again, she's going to get to 270. But I know everybody's nervous, so I'm selling my worst case scenario map coffee mug for you nervous wrecks to clutch to. Fill it with Irish coffee or just Irish whiskey and drink it. Calm down. Buy this mug for, let me go big here, because Leonard doesn't think this is going to work. But this is the worst case scenario map. Buy it for anyone who's freaking out over the election and get them some scotch to pour into it at work so people think they're on caffeine. It's the worst case scenario map where Harris gets 270 and Trump gets 268. That is the worst that's going to happen on Election Day. And of course, if you want to break my heart, go ahead and buy our runaway bestseller. It's a chef's apron with the words, "I hope you're in the mood for diarrhea." As you know, I try to cultivate an audience of socially conscious intellectuals, but when it comes to people buying merch from me, all they want is the "I hope you're in the mood for diarrhea" chef's apron. Thanks a lot. Someone actually wrote to me worried. For me, they said, I bought your "Hope You're in the Mood for Diarrhea." This is true. Somebody wrote to me and said, I just purchased your "Hope You're in the Mood for Diarrhea" chef's apron, and I notice you haven't trademarked it. Somebody might rip you off. Thank you, but nobody's ripping me off. Because the only reason people are buying the "I hope you're in the mood for diarrhea" chef's apron is to hurt me. If I could trademark humiliation, I would, because that's what this is all about. The only reason my listeners are buying the "Hope You're in the Mood for Diarrhea" chef's apron is to make me feel less than. But thank you for your concern about trademarking this brilliant idea. The candidates made their financial disclosures public this week. According to The Guardian, J.D. Vance is worth, I'm going to say only worth, between $4 and $11 million. Now, for us, that's a lot of money. But if you're a private equity turd like J.D. Vance, he should be worth a lot more. Plus, the rights to Hillbilly Elegy, how can he should be worth a lot. Maybe he's just dumber than we even thought he was. Vice President Harris is worth $8 million, while her running mate, Tim Walz, is worth $330,000. Tim Walz and his wife have $330,000 in assets. That doesn't include all their government pensions that Walz and his wife are entitled to once they retire. I like $330,000. I trust a politician who's worth $330,000. This guy served as a governor. Before that, he was a United States congressman. He taught high school. He's worth $330,000. That feels just about right. The Guardian reports the Bidens are worth $10 million. Most of that comes from speaking engagements and books they wrote after Biden left the Obama administration. And we have new information about Donald Trump's financials. Trump earned $300,000 this year for endorsing a Bible. According to his latest 265-page financial disclosures filed with the Federal Elections Commission, he made $300,000 off the Bible. You might remember earlier this year, Trump endorsed the Greenwood Bible, which sells for $60. You can just steal one from a Trump hotel, But this one, the Greenwood Bible for $60, includes lyrics to Lee Greenwood's God Bless the USA. Bloomberg now lists the former president's net worth at $5.3 billion. Okay, that seems like a lot, right? According to the latest financial disclosures, he owes at least $500 million in judgments to the New York State Attorney General after he was found guilty earlier this year of defrauding lenders, and he owes close to $83 million to E. Jean Carroll after two separate juries ruled Trump had defamed and raped her. So how does Trump get to $5.3 billion? More than half of that comes from his holdings in the Trump Media and Technology Group. Remember that? It's his Truth Social company, which went public earlier this year. The stock is now selling at $23 and some change. Back in March, when it first went public, it was selling at $66 a share. I normally don't dispense financial advice, but I have a lot of MAGA morons listening to me. If you're voting for Trump, this is the buying opportunity of a lifetime. To all my Trump listeners, listen to me. Borrow against everything you own and dump your entire net worth into Trump Media. It's selling at $23 a share. It can only go up. You'll hate yourself if you don't. Well, you already hate yourself. That's why you're voting for Trump. But you'll hate yourself even more if such a thing is possible. So put everything on Trump Media. We've also learned that Trump in 2024 filed 100 new trademarks with China, which he hates. He hates China, but he filed 100 trademarks with China. That's up from just 2 the previous year. And Trump now owns as much as $5 million in cryptocurrency, which he recently referred to as a scam. So I guess when Trump calls something a scam, that's actually an endorsement. Vice President Harris was in North Carolina on Friday, where she unveiled her new economic policy. You might remember Trump was in North Carolina on Wednesday. North Carolina has 16 electoral votes, same as Georgia. And new polling shows Harris, for the first time, leading Trump in North Carolina by 2 percentage points. North Carolina is starting to look bluer and bluer. In her first major policy address, Harris on Friday talked about protecting the middle class from corporate greed, especially when it comes to inflation. Food and shelter. That's what she talked about on Friday. Food and shelter. Harris announced plans to provide a $6,000 tax cut to families with small children. She would also lift millions out of poverty by expanding the child tax credit, increasing it to $3,600 for some families. As I said earlier, Speaker Mike Johnson and J.D. Vance have also expressed interest in expanding the child tax credit, as has Donald Trump, but a bill doing just that died in the Senate last month. The child tax credit, you might recall, was expanded briefly during the first year of the Biden administration, and before it expired, more Americans were lifted out of poverty than from any other government program in American history. Without going into much detail, keeping her speech down to a bite-sized 30 minutes on Friday, Vice President Harris promised to institute the first ever federal ban on price gouging when it comes to food and groceries. She also unveiled plans to build 3 million new housing units. She's talking food and shelter. While promising to eliminate taxes on tips, Harris also promised not to raise taxes on any Americans earning less than $400,000 a year. Now, I'm going to say something that's going to alienate all my listeners. This is the perfect plan to unveil the week before the convention. Days, the weekend before the convention. She's doing exactly what she needs to do. I know a lot of my listeners don't want to hear this. She's basically, with this economic plan, offering nothing for Trump to attack her with. In fact, he's agreeing with a lot of it. There's nothing really of substance here. And with 80 some odd days left before the election, there's no time for substance. You can't run on substance against Donald Trump because he's an effing liar. President Obama used to call this time of the election cycle the silly season. Well, it's gone from silly to just plain stupid, because with Donald Trump and these MAGA Republicans, you can't discuss policy. You just have to win. Trump makes everyone and everything stupid. We need to get rid of him. That's why her policy speech this week, yesterday, was perfect. Perfect. I know my Bernie bros wanted her to promise to repeal the Faircloth Amendment and promise that the federal government will start building low-income housing, not waiting for realtors to step in, having the government build low-income housing. And that's what I want. I don't believe in what she's talking about, this tax incentive garbage, which we know doesn't result in low-income housing. So I get why some of my Bernie bros are pissed off. Pushing enterprise zones to solve the housing crisis, tax incentives, it's nothing, okay? I know that I agree with you, but I still support the speech. And my saying that there was really no substance in her speech on Friday is also going to piss off my diehard Harris fans who actually think what she offered yesterday was substantial. It really wasn't. Because too much substance at this stage would be handing ammunition to Donald Trump for him to use against her. There is no time for substance. This is exactly how you win elections. And I agree with her for doing this. Trump says tips shouldn't be taxed. She drives him crazy, and she takes it. She makes it hers. Because you can't argue economics with Donald Trump, especially when your poll numbers are this good. He is an effing liar. Everything that comes out of his mouth is a lie. She's winning over independents and even some Republicans. Right now, this is about winning, and you do not want to start pushing any policy that can be construed as too left-wing. She's got to work the center in order to win big, and she needs to win big. This is not the time, with 80 some odd days, to get down into the weeds and hash out policy with this homunculus Donald Trump. I'm sorry to all my Bernie bros who are purists, and I'm sorry to all my Harris supporters who think she's more progressive than she actually is. As I have said on previous shows, President Harris will only be as progressive as we make her. Biden came into the Oval Office as a corporate hack, but we made him do it. And now he goes down as one of the most progressive presidents in my lifetime, okay? Now is not the time to push Harris to the left. Get her elected, then we force her to the left. Her new economic plan that she announced in North Carolina on Friday is perfect, precisely because it's relatively short on substance. As you know, I am a one-issue voter, Medicare for all. It's really all I have time to care about. But now is not the time to debate Medicare for all, okay? She needs to win this election, and I don't think she's going to give us Medicare for all, but I am hearing that she may give us the public option, which could put the health insurance companies out of business. Obama punted on the public option. He almost snuck that into Obamacare, but at the last minute he took it out. The public option is a Trojan horse that could end up putting the entire health insurance company industry out of business, which they should be out of business, and then all their CEOs should burn in hell. She said, and I mean that, if you're a health insurance executive, you should just rot in hell. President Harris said her economic plan that she unveiled on Friday will consume her first 100 days. Well, not unless she also wins the Senate. This economic plan, ambitious as it is, and there's Easter eggs she's hiding from us, her economic plan will be dead on arrival unless she wins the Senate. Listen to me on this. Obama was elected in 2008 by a landslide, and he came in with Democrats controlling the House, and he came close to not just winning he won the Senate, he almost had a filibuster-proof Senate. Had Al Franken, had it not taken too long to count his votes, and had Ted Kennedy not gotten sick and there had to be an election to replace him, he came very close in 2009 when he took office to having a filibuster-proof Senate. He was able to get a lot done his first 2 years in office. It's why we got Obamacare and the stimulus package. Democrats controlled both houses of Congress. And by the way, the Energy Information Administration just reported this morning that for 2 months this year, more energy in the United States was created by wind turbines than it was by coal. This is huge, and that's partly because of the Inflation Reduction Act, which Biden was able to pass his first 2 years in office because he had the House and the Senate. Solar power and wind is affordable now, mostly because of Barack Obama's stimulus package from 2009, which he was able to pass because he controlled the House and the Senate. There are things that can be slipped into stimulus packages and budgets that can save the world without anyone seeing it. But you need to control the Senate. Like I said, President Biden won in 2020, and because of those 2 Senate races down in Georgia, he squeaked out a majority in the Senate. In 2020, the Democrats, when Biden took office, they kept the House and took the Senate, which is why Biden's first 2 years in office were among the most transformative in American history. When Donald Trump won in 2016, Republicans got the trifecta. They got the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. That's why he was able to pass a tax cut for the richest 1%. Okay, do you understand what I'm saying here? The first 100 days of any presidency can be monumental and transformative, but only if the president has the House and the Senate. Trump, Biden, Obama, they all got that when they first came into office. President Harris deserves a democratically controlled Senate. If she doesn't get this, again, it's a given that she's going to get the House of Representatives. If she doesn't get the Senate, and right now it's not looking too good, she's going to have to deal with low information Democrats, low information liberals, and the worst of all, low information leftists who will spend 4 years complaining that she can't get anything done. I don't want to spend the next 4 years after she's inaugurated hearing from my idiot friends who are saying things like, I don't care if it's divided government. There's things she can do through an executive order with the stroke of a pen. I don't want to hear that. Yes, There are things a president can do through executive order, but as we saw when Joe Biden tried to extend the eviction moratorium or forgive student loans, all through executive orders, the courts blocked it. Executive orders only last as long as the courts allow them to last, okay? Executive orders are not the same as legislation. And when you don't control the Senate, you don't control the courts, which means executive orders are more likely to be reversed by Republican judges. She's not going to be able to pick progressive judges if the Republicans control the Senate. She's going to have to pick, at best, centrists. Without the Senate, President Harris will tread water her first 2 years in office, hoping to win back the Senate in 2026, but by then her approval rating will be underwater, and Democrats could end up losing the House because low information voters, and we are lousy with them in this country, low information voters don't understand divided government, and they will start blaming her for being ineffectual. We have to make sure that she wins the Senate. Biden, Trump, Obama all came into office with both houses of Congress. Harris deserves the same. She deserves the House and the Senate. Now, she's going to win, and that will be great. But there's not much we can get done without the Senate. Granted, Trump is no longer going to be a factor, but Republicans are going to continue being who they always have been, obstructionists. Eliminating Donald Trump isn't the answer. The answer is making Republicans pay a steep political price for Donald Trump, and that means getting the Senate. And it all comes down to Montana. It all comes down to Montana. If Jon Tester, Democratic incumbent, if he loses Montana, the Senate flips red. It's just that simple. So, like I said on the last show, if you have extra money and some vacation time, you might want to consider spending the last week of September in Montana knocking on doors for Jon Tester. I'll explain why I'm telling you to spend the last week of September in Montana in a second, but it has to be the last week of September. Control of the Senate right now comes down to Montana, and early voting starts in Montana at the very beginning of October, the first week of October. So you really need to consider spending the last week of September or the first week of October in Montana knocking on doors. Now, the problem is the people of Montana don't like outsiders. That's why this guy, Tim Sheehy, who he's running against, he may lose because he's considered an outsider. According to some polling I've been looking at, if the people of Montana think control of the Senate is in their hands, which it is, then they're more likely to vote for the Republican candidate. Montana is Trump country, but it's also Jon Tester country. Jon Tester has consistently been one of the most popular politicians in the Senate for the past 20 years. He often has the highest approval ratings among his constituents compared to any other senator in Washington. Tester is beloved in Montana. But according to some polling that I'm looking at, if the good people of Montana become convinced this election isn't about Tester, but rather control of the Senate, they're going to vote for the other guy. That's why I think you should call the Democratic Party in Montana, call Tester's office, tell them you want to knock on doors, but you got to do it before early voting starts in the first week of October before everyone starts paying attention to Montana and everyone in Montana realizes the world is watching. You want to get them to vote the first week of October before they realize control of the Senate is in their hands. Luckily, this is a small show with a tiny audience, and nobody's watching Montana yet. So you want to get out there by the end of September. This is the greatest vacation. If you have the money and you can afford to take a week off and travel, you want to go to Montana the last week of September and start knocking on doors in Billings, Bozeman, Missoula, Great Falls, and I think it's pronounced Butte. I don't think it's pronounced Butte or Butte. Make sure if you go there, learn how to pronounce Butte. I think it's Butte. Those are the big cities. That's where you're going to find Democrats when you knock on their doors. But call Tester's office if you're planning to do this. Don't do it. Don't freelance. You want to do this through the Democratic Party. And these cities are gorgeous the last week of September. If you have money and vacation time, quite frankly, if you have money and vacation time and you don't spend a couple of days in Montana the last week of September helping Jon Tester, you're insane. Seriously. This is about Harris's first 100 days and the courts. It all comes down to Montana, and you got to get there before the rest of this country realizes this. You got to get to the people of Montana before they start voting the first week of October. According to new studies by the Groundwork Collective, much of the inflation we saw in 2023 was caused by corporations padding their bottom lines. If you listen to my show, I was telling you this back in 2022. Now, this study says more than half of the inflation we've been seeing in the second half of 2023, half of it can be attributed to corporate profits. In other words, they're charging way more for what they're selling is actually worth. According to this study, consumer prices rose 3.4% in 2023. But the cost for corporations to produce those products only rose 1%, perhaps even less. So, and I said they were doing this in 2022, and this study bears me out. Under the false cover of inflation, corporations claimed to be passing this fictitious rise in prices for commodities, the rise in labor. They said we have to pass it on to consumers by raising prices, when in fact the cost of commodities and labor has barely budged. In some cases, at least when it comes to commodities, the cost has actually gone down. This is why President Harris, Vice President Harris, and President Biden have been calling it greedflation. It's why President Harris yesterday called it price gouging. The New York Times reports this morning that when President Harris unveiled her new economic plan on Friday, she blamed the rising cost of food on supermarkets who are simply price gouging. Harris also blamed the rising cost of meat on the consolidation of big ag. Fewer and fewer meat producers because they're being gobbled up by the larger ones. So when there are fewer slaughterhouses, fewer cattle ranchers, and fewer wholesale beef distributors, that allows the remaining producers of meat to get away with charging whatever they want. She's spot on here. This is why inflation can no longer be blamed on COVID-related or Ukraine war-related supply chain issues. Inflation now is a direct result of corporations buying up their competition and charging whatever they want because they have pricing power. And the only way to prevent corporations from doing this is with an FTC and a Justice Department that vigorously blocks the mergers of grocery chains, movie studios, video game manufacturers, and banks, which the Biden administration is trying to do. But as you know, the Ninth Circuit Court last year allowed Microsoft's purchase of video game maker Activision to go through. The FTC, Biden's FTC, Lina Khan, they sued. So far, it lost in the Ninth Circuit. The Biden administration's FTC is currently suing to block the merger of supermarket chains, Albertsons, and Kroger. Biden is suing to block the merger of Tempur Sealy and Mattress Firm, Big Mattress. He's going after them. And the Biden administration successfully blocked Amazon's purchase of iRobot. But it's no good. It's not good enough to have a Justice Department and an FTC like the one we have now suing to block all these mergers, because ultimately it's up to the courts. As we saw with Microsoft's $75 billion acquisition of Activision, the video game manufacturer, the Ninth Circuit Court said it was perfectly legal last year, and it's gone through. It's gone through. As I pointed out on the last episode, the latest inflation report for July shows the largest price increase in all industries last month was in video games. Why? Microsoft last month raised the cost of subscription services for video games, and they can get away with it because they don't have any competition now that Activision is owned by Microsoft. How do you win antitrust cases? You have to line our courts with progressive judges who are on the side of consumers, judges who are on the side of competition, not corporations. And that means you have to control the Senate. It is the Senate that confirms judicial nominees. It is the Senate that confirms all our federal judges. The president nominates, but it's the Senate that confirms. As I keep telling you, had Hillary won in 2016 and then reelected in 2020, 6 out of our 9 Supreme Court justices would have either been her picks or Obama's, even with a Republican-controlled Senate. They wouldn't be as liberal as she would want if McConnell was controlling the Senate, but they would at least be centrists, which compared to the 3 judges Trump picked might as well be leftists. The lower courts, had Hillary won in 2016, would be filled with far more judges sympathetic to the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. Donald Trump made 245 judicial appointments when he was president. That was almost record-setting. That's because throughout his administration, Mitch McConnell was Senate Majority Leader. The Republicans controlled the Senate throughout the entire Trump administration. Halfway through Trump's administration, Republicans lost the House, and Pelosi became Speaker, but Trump never lost the Senate, which meant he had no trouble poisoning our courts with Mitch McConnell. Okay? Obama was reelected in 2012. Now, he had control of the Senate when he was reelected, which meant between 2013 and 2014, he was able, with the guy from Texas, I forgot his name. Damn it. Hang on. The Senate Majority Leader, not Harry Byrd. I'm not going to look it up. Don't tell me. Jesus. Now I can't do the show. Now I can't do the show. I'm not looking. Don't tell me. Senate Majority Leader out of Nevada. All right. Anyway, it'll come to me in 2 minutes. Obama was reelected in 2012 with control of the Senate, which meant between 2013 and 2014, he was able to confirm 90% of his judicial nominees. But then, in 2014, the Democrats lost the Senate. In the midterms, Obama was still president, but Mitch McConnell, the Republican, became majority leader, and McConnell blockaded nearly all of Obama's judicial appointments. It wasn't just Merrick Garland's appointment to the Supreme Court. Now I'm worried I have COVID brain fog. Who was Senate Majority Leader? It was Harry. All right, that's it. Show's over. Bye, everybody. Don't tell me. That's the coward's way out. Harry Reid, right? Harry Reid. That doesn't feel right. But I'm going to go with Harry Reid. Okay, Harry Reid. Let me start the show from the beginning. This is the mop-up for August 17th. If I forget something, I can't focus. Harry Reid. I'm positive it was Harry Reid. Okay. So, I'm sorry. I've had COVID and I'm worried about my memory. In 2014, the Democrats lost the Senate in the midterms. Mitch McConnell becomes majority leader. Republican and McConnell blockades nearly all of Obama's judicial appointments. Not just Merrick Garland. Remember, Scalia died in 2016. Obama appointed Merrick Garland, and McConnell said, no, can't vote on him till after the election. But when Amy Coney Barrett replaced Ruth Bader Ginsburg in 2020, McConnell said, oh, it's perfectly fine to vote on a Supreme Court justice during an election year. Anyway, McConnell blocked 72% of all of Barack Obama's nominees during his last 2 years in office. And because Republicans controlled the Senate, the 28% that McConnell let slip through, they couldn't be as progressive as Obama wanted. This is the nightmare of divided government. All right? This is, for the first 2 years after Obama was reelected with Democrats controlling the Senate, Obama was able to get 132 judges confirmed. The last 2 years with McConnell in charge of the Senate, Obama only got 20 judges confirmed. That's it. 20 judges. That's why when Trump took office, there were 105 empty federal judgeships waiting for Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell to start filling immediately. This is why it is so effing important not just to win the Oval Office, but also the Senate. It's no good to have a progressive president, wildly popular. She's going to be wildly popular. It's not good enough if we have courts filled with Trump picks, which, they are, especially the Supreme Court. Like I keep telling you, control of the Senate right now comes down to Montana. And if John Tester loses that seat, President Harris enters office with a Republican-controlled Senate, and that is no good. I've got some polling here for Montana. There's a sliver of good news here. Back in June, there's not too much polling that goes on in Montana. They're not polling Montana because nobody really knows yet that this all comes down to Montana, but they're going to realize after the convention, you're going to start hearing how the Senate comes down to Montana. So there's not that much polling to work with. We do know back in June, one poll showed Donald Trump beating Joe Biden by 20 points in Montana. I think he beat Biden in 2020 by 16 or 17 points. So he was doing even better in June. It also showed Jon Tester, the Democrat, tied with his likely Republican challenger, Tim Sheehy, which is phenomenal. You have Biden losing by 20 points to Trump in Montana, but Jon Tester, Democrat, tied. That's how beloved Jon Tester is in Montana. What a story he is. But since then, the race has begun to slip away from Jon Tester, with the Real Clear averages showing, and you really can't trust the polling here, but Real Clear averages are now showing Sheehy leading Tester by 4 percentage points. Sheehy is really easy to beat. I've gone over him. He would I don't want to get over it, but I don't want to go over it right now. I'll discuss it later, but he's easy to beat. We have some good news this morning. There's a brand new poll coming to us from the Neapolitan News Service. I don't know what the Neapolitan News Service is, but they surveyed 540 registered Montana voters. And we got this before the show started this morning. And Montana voters, according to this poll, Tester is beating Sheehy by 5 percentage points. The same poll has Trump defeating Harris by 18 points. So I wasn't sure if I was going to talk about this poll, but I don't know enough about the Neapolitan News Service, but when I saw Trump beating Harris in this poll in Montana by 18 points, but Tester beating Sheehy by 5, I thought, all right, this is interesting. We're seeing ticket splitting here. We don't have much polling to go on in Montana. Again, Jon Tester has always been one of the most popular politicians in the Senate, consistently having one of the highest approval ratings among his own constituents, better than probably any other senator. Tester is beloved in Montana, but here's an interesting question on this poll, and this is really primarily the reason I'm talking about this poll. So please pay attention to this because it's fascinating, and it'll show. This is why my show is so great, because you're going to hear about Montana after Labor Day. I promise you, but nobody's talking about it. Now listen, this poll shows Tester leading by 5 points, okay? But when asked in the poll, if you knew your vote for senator would determine control of the Senate, would you vote for the Republican or the Democratic candidate? Now remember, Tester, the Democrat, is leading by 5 points, okay? But when the same people are asked, if you knew your vote for senator would determine control of the Senate, would you vote for the Republican or the Democratic candidate? This is so effing interesting. 55% of the participants in this Montana poll said they would vote for the Republican. 37 said the Democrat, okay? So same poll, Tester, the Democrat, leads by 5 percentage points. But if Montana voters think their vote will determine control of the Senate, then they will vote for Sheehy, the Republican, by a landslide. So, one of the ways to win Montana is for Tester to downplay the significance of this election, of his election, to make it more about him and less about the Democrats or the Republicans, which he's doing. He's very smart. He's saying, I haven't heard what he said since Harris became the nominee, but all year he's been saying, I'm going to Washington to take on who's ever president. I represent Montana, and I have a lot of problems with Joe Biden. So, it's interesting. Now, Tester has to win. And it's not looking good. There is a sliver of hope, though. I'm optimistic. It all comes down to Montana, but maybe Democrats can open up another Senate race so it doesn't come down to Montana, which right now it does. You saw in that poll, if the people from Montana think they're deciding control of the Senate, Tester loses. But if we can convince Montana that there are other Senate seats in play, then it will dial down the heat in Montana, and people will vote for Tester, not thinking it's determinative of control of the Senate. So, how am I doing on time? God, I love this. This is so interesting. I want to do short shows. Hang on. How am I doing here? Okay. No Leonard today. We had some Leonard, but we're going to run him on the next show. Okay. There are a total of 15 Senate seats up for grabs this cycle. One seat that we know is flipping red is Joe Manchin's in West Virginia. That's receive wisdom. Joe Manchin, Democrat, not coming back. That seat goes red. So if nothing else changes, President Harris will have control of the Senate, because that leaves her with 50, Democrats with 50, Republicans with 50, and Vice President Walz casts the tie-breaking vote. But nothing else can change. Of the 15 races, we've got 7 toss-ups. All 7 toss-ups are Democratic seats. And in order to keep control of the Senate, the Democrats have to win all 7 toss-ups. The math on the surface is against us. If they lose one toss-up, Republicans get the Senate. As I went over on the last show, those 7 toss-up Senate seats are Arizona, Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Nevada, and Montana. Now, because this is going to be a wave election, we're talking 2008, Democrat Ruben Gallego is going to win the Arizona Senate seat. It stays blue. Elisa Slotkin in Michigan keeps Debbie Stabeno's seat blue. Bob Casey in Pennsylvania is going to be reelected. Tammy Baldwin, Democrat in Wisconsin, is going to be reelected. Democrat Jackie Rosen is going to be reelected in Nevada. And I'm going to say, short of a structural shift in the map, Democrat Sherrod Brown is going to be reelected in Ohio. That's where we'll see probably ticket splitting. I still think Trump wins Ohio. That leaves Democratic Senator Jon Tester in Maine. Democrats are going to win 6. It's a given. 6 out of these 7 toss-ups, the Democrats are going to sweep. Montana. And if they lose Montana, Republicans get the Senate. It's going to be tough. There are no other opportunities. There are 15 Senate seats up for grabs this cycle. There are no other opportunities as of this morning. You've got Republican Josh Hawley in Missouri. Remember him? He gave the solidarity fist to the January Sixers and then ran like a little, you know what? He's running against Kuntz, and the only polling we have is back from June 21st. There's an A+ Emerson poll showing Hawley winning by 9 points. Maybe. In Texas, Republican Ted Cruz is running against House Democrat Colin Allred. Colin Allred is the strongest candidate Cruz has ever faced. He's a former NFL player, turned civil rights attorney, turned progressive congressman. But the Real Clear averages show Ted Cruz beating Allred by more than 7 points. Again, there are a lot of B+ polls in the mix. Not looking good. The right now, Florida, Rick Scott, who stole $1 billion from Medicaid and Medicare. He's running for re-election. Senator from Florida. He's leading former United States Congresswoman Debbie McCurcell Powell by 6 percentage points. So I'm doing this so you know how to look at the map and pay attention to where the real races are and where the resources are going to be allocated. Can Kamala Harris flip Florida? Okay? She flips Florida blue. She's going to take Rick Scott down, and Powell, the Democrat, becomes the new senator, and that takes the pressure off Testor in Montana. A brand new poll of 400 likely Florida voters conducted by ActiVote. I don't know how good a poll this is, but this is before Labor Day. This came out late Friday, last night. This new poll shows Harris losing to Trump by 8 points in Florida. Now, I was saying North Carolina she was going to win. Biden. I was saying Biden could win North Carolina. Then I said Harris was going to win North Carolina, and now we see her winning in North Carolina. I don't know if she's going to win Florida, but I know that's the hill she's going to fight on. Right now, it's not looking good, but Pennsylvania, Florida, for the president. Florida is really important because it might be in play, and it is really, as of this morning, the only other Senate seat, the only Senate seat we could actually flip right now, as of this morning. So the convention is next, Tuesday? Monday. Here's what we need to see. We need to see a massive, massive wave in November, which we're going to see, but it's got to be a tsunami. And that wave, pay attention, please, to this. That wave, the Harris wave, has to flood one of these 4 states in order for Harris to keep the Senate blue. Montana, or Florida, or Texas, or Missouri. She's going to win this election, but in order for the Democrats to keep the Senate, she has to flip Montana, or Florida, or Texas, or Missouri. Okay? As of this morning, that doesn't look good. But the convention is next week. And Donald Trump is, he should just attach a suicide belt to himself and pull the trigger. There's no way Trump is winning this. There's no way. Again, of the four Democratic Senate candidates in Montana, Florida, Texas, and Missouri, Tester in Montana still has the best chance of winning. So what we're going to see after Labor Day, this is what the news is going to be. The Harris campaign is going to fan out. She and Walz will be extending the map beyond the blue wall to North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. If she can solidify Pennsylvania, which she's going to do, then she can focus on North Carolina and Georgia as well as Arizona and Nevada. I think if we see Pennsylvania, if she has like a 4-point lead in Pennsylvania after Labor Day, then she has 2 months to open the map up and win North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. That's a landslide. But none of those states flipping blue gives her control of the Senate. She will only hold the Senate if she can keep Montana for Tester, but she's never going to flip Montana blue. But she can help Tester. Short of that, she has to flip Florida blue. The entire state has to go blue, and that means flipping. If she flips Florida blue, she takes Rick Scott down. Powell, the Democrat, wins the Senate. Short of that, that is a possible scenario. Then she has to flip Missouri blue, and that would wipe out Josh Hawley. Okay? I don't want to say that's never going to happen, but it's never going to happen. Also, what's not going to happen is flipping Texas, wiping out Ted Cruz. It's never going to happen. Then again, I'm always wrong. Not always. Anyway. This is what to expect after the convention. We're going to see immediately after the convention a full court press in Florida. You're going to see this is, if Pennsylvania looks safe, the Democrats take it to Florida because they can possibly flip the Senate seat there. DeSantis, the racist fascist, has done a terrific job making it impossible for black people to vote down there. But again, abortion's on the ballot. I think marijuana too. So people are going to wait in line. They're going to vote. Okay, so you're going to see the Clintons, the Obamas, the Bidens down in Florida for all of September. If the numbers in Pennsylvania keep improving. September is all about Florida, Florida, Florida. If Pennsylvania is solid. Now, if Democrats can just get Florida into play by October 1st, that means Senator Rick Scott's seat is no longer safe. And then starting in October, Harris could focus on Missouri, getting rid of Josh Hawley, flipping that state blue. It's never going to happen. And then maybe Ted Cruz flipping Texas blue. That's never going to happen. Something else to keep in mind, and I was going to talk about immigration. Something else to keep in mind. Early voting for Montana starts 30 days before the election. So Democrats will be sending out their heavy machinery to Montana first, between now and October 1st, because they're going to start voting in Montana the first week of October. You're going to see between Labor Day and October 1st, everything's going to be Florida and Montana. Florida and Montana. If Pennsylvania is solidly blue. Do I have time? Oh, dear. Do I want to talk about immigration? I do. All right. It's hard to do a short show, but this is exciting. It's very exciting. We're going to have the greatest show in 2025. We're going to have President Harris, and we're going to just watch Donald Trump just spend a year going broke, trying not to go to prison. Melania is going to divorce him. It's just going to be so much fun. Like I said, just imagine what Rudy Giuliani is going through right now, and then multiply that times 1,000. That's going to be Donald Trump. They deserve it. And here's why. The BBC reports this morning that Donald Trump's promise to deport 1 million undocumented immigrants is nothing short of a logistical pipe dream. You know, as long as we're still a nation of laws, he can't do it. You know, if he becomes president and Project 2025 goes into effect, who knows? But he would have to quadruple the size of ICE, which currently stands at 25,000. I'm going to talk about ICE in a second before I leave and why you should vote for Harris. According to the BBC, the number of undocumented immigrants in America now stands at 11 million. Now, I know the immigration issue, it's not a crisis, it's an issue. It's confusing because people lie. And they are allowed to lie because we really don't follow this story closely enough. So, despite the so-called crisis at the border, despite Republicans complaining about an influx of quote-unquote illegals, the actual number of undocumented immigrants in this country has remained 11 million for the past 20 years. Got it? There's no flood of migrants. The number of migrants at the border fluctuates depending on economic and political conditions in Central America. When you look at a 20-year secular sweep, it stays at 11 million. Over the long haul, the past 2 decades, we've got 11 million undocumented immigrants who we need. That's for another show. The BBC reports that 4/5 of those 11 million have lived here for more than a decade. That means they're part of our labor force. They pay into Social Security. They are a key component of our economy. They work the farms, slaughterhouses, construction, nursing homes, and they work over at Mar-a-Lago. You might want to Google that one. Type in undocumented immigrants, Mar-a-Lago. So, how did the Republicans come up with promising to deport 1 million? Well, if 4/5 of the 11 million have been in this country for 10 years, there are only about 1 million who you can legally maybe get away with deporting. Now, the BBC reports that in 2022, the Supreme Court ruled that the courts cannot provide injunctive relief to an undocumented immigrant who's being deported. That means the courts cannot stop a deportation before it happens. The deportation can only be challenged after it takes place, which means ICE. And if you work for ICE, you should seriously consider, people complain when I say all 20,000 people who work for ICE are satanic. They are. We need to eliminate ICE. We need to eliminate ICE. So right now, because of the Supreme Court's ruling in 2022, ICE has the power to start removing people, no injunctive relief from the courts, and then how do you succeed if you've been deported, sent back to your home country? The chances of a court challenge succeeding filed from Guatemala, Haiti, or El Salvador are slim to none. So there are two types of deportations that take place here in America. There are the deportations that take place immediately at the border. That would be Border Patrol catching the migrants right as they come in and then sending them back. The other deportation takes place within America proper, within any of our 50 states. And those are conducted by the pigs from ICE. And as we know, the pigs from ICE arbitrarily target the 11 million who have been living here for more than a decade. The BBC says that for the past two decades, this country has averaged 100,000 deportations of undocumented immigrants living and working in the United States per year. Okay, we've got 11 million undocumented immigrants for the past 20 years. Has been steady, and we average 100,000 deportations per year. These are not the migrants at the border we're deporting. These are undocumented immigrants living and working in America. These are our friends. These are the children we go to school with, parents of the dreamers. Like I said, if you work for ICE, you're a pig. President Obama has the record for most deportations of those living and working with us. One year, Obama deported 250,000. He was called the deporter-in-chief. Nobody broke that record in modern American history, but he did try to pass the Dreamers Act. He did it through executive order. He's given us, he's helped the Dreamers through executive order, but that's also tied up in the courts for future Dreamers. Current Dreamers are safe, but future Dreamers, the courts, right? Last year, the Biden administration deported 140,000, not at the border. I'm talking about among the 11 million who we go to school with, who we work with, our nannies, the people who do our kitchens. Biden deported 140,000. Didn't need to, but because this country is stupid, and doesn't understand immigration, Donald Trump is able to politicize hatred, and it polls really well, and Biden had to respond to it by deporting unnecessarily 140,000 of our friends. This is Trump's signature issue, but it's an issue in search of a crisis. There is no migrant crisis. It's actually an opportunity. I've done way too many shows outlining all the cities across America that need these migrants. And as I reported on the last show, Texas Governor Greg Abbott continues to brag about how he is going to continue shipping migrants to blue cities as soon as he can find some. He's unable to load buses since January of this year. There's a shortage of migrants in Texas, so he can't punish blue cities by putting them on buses. They have a shortage of migrants to scapegoat. But they still insist there's a migrant crisis at the border because of low information voters. This country, the dumber this country gets, the dumber the issues are, and that jeopardizes the lives of 11 million undocumented immigrants who we need in this country, who we are better off with. But because this country is getting dumber and dumber, we don't realize that we need more undocumented immigrants. This is the danger of stupidity. This is why, as I get older, I am really intolerant of willfully stupid people and people, politicians like Abbott and Trump, who exploit stupidity. You might remember, the fact that Donald Trump was leading Joe Biden in the polls a month ago should give you an idea how effing stupid the American people have become. This election really is about stupidity. If you're not voting for Harris, you're homunculus. You're a knuckle-dragging, mouth-breathing homunculus. You might remember the Republican-controlled House of Representatives impeached the Director of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, this year because they said he refused to enforce any of the immigration laws. Stupidity. Just pure stupidity. And that impeachment trial died in the Senate. You might remember earlier in the year, a bipartisan bill came out of the Senate which would have increased funding to, quote unquote, secure our border. And Trump ordered it killed, telling Speaker Mike Johnson, we need to keep this issue alive until I'm elected. Flying under the radar in all of this, of course, is the truth. Here's the truth. Back in December of 2023, yes, there was a cyclical surge at the border. We had 250,000 migrants apprehended at the border. And like I said, there are many reasons for these cyclical surges. They are economic and they are political. That's cyclical. Last month, 57,000 migrants were apprehended at the border. That's down from 84,000 in June. There's no crisis. In fact, we need to let these people in. That's the crisis. It's not a crisis. It's just an issue that Trump and the Republicans want to run on, because running against migrants satisfies the bloodlust of low information, racist voters. Donald Trump is a liar, and the entire Republican Party has become nothing but liars. This whole border crisis is a lie. Democrats have to start speaking the truth about immigration, because we are destroying the lives of 11 million of our neighbors. It's immoral. I bring all this up because I'll let you in on a little secret about Vice President Harris. Don't tell anyone. But deep down inside, she doesn't like ICE. She hinted when Trump was president and before she was running for president that it might be time to eliminate ICE. This is why I'm voting for Harris. And I almost, I remember reading this back excuse me, in 2018, 2019. And I remember this, I think, I like her. But then she waffled on Medicare for all. But she's for the public option now. This is what she said back in 2019 before she was running for president. Quote, Senator Harris, and if you don't vote for her after this, go F yourself. Seriously, this is what she said in 2019. This is what's in her heart. Quote, I think there's no question that we've got to critically re-examine ICE and its role and the way that it is being administered and the work it is doing. And we need to probably think about starting from scratch. All right? She's not saying eliminate ICE, but start from scratch, unquote. There's a progressive lurking down there. First we get her elected, and then we do to her what we did to Joe Biden. We make her do it. She'll do it, but we have to make her do it. But first we have to get her elected, and we have to get the Senate. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. If you would like 90 minutes, I cannot do a short show. If you would like a transcript, a free transcript of today's show, go to shopdavidfeldman.com. They are free because of the people who buy my merch, like this Still a Democrat coffee mug or T-shirt, my Made in Los Estados Unidos coffee mug. That's my favorite. This one is for your babysitter, your kid's babysitter. It's a picture of Albert Einstein, and it says, I'm surrounded by idiots. This is me just throwing one right down the middle. And for my sister, my worst case scenario mug, it just shows you can cling to this until Election Day. She's going to win. She's guaranteed 270 electoral votes. That's all you need. And if you want to buy a worst case scenario mug proving that you got nothing to worry about, at least when it comes to Harris, go to shopdavidfeldman.com. But the Senate is going to be a problem. Thank you to everybody in the chat room. I don't know who's here this morning. Thank you to Bob, who keeps the conversation civil. Please comment. I read all your comments unless you're a Republican, in which case I ban you from commenting here at the show. There's nothing you have to say that I'm interested in if you're a Republican. Please like this episode so I remain in your feed. And most importantly, share it. That's the best way to help me. And subscribe to my newsletter. I think I have some super chats this morning. So let me thank the super chats. Thank you, Fernando. I know that name. I know Fernando. Barbara, thank you. Tim, more Barbara, and Jen. Thank you. Thank you. And of course, to all the people who just comment. That's it. I'm going to try to do a show Sunday night, early Monday morning. I'm feeling better. Okay. No Leonard. No time for Leonard. Bye. Thank you, everybody.